Morning, everybody. Welcome to Powerful Capabilities for Invoices, Integration, and Analytics. I'm Jeremiah McNicholas, the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Financials at Procore. I'll be your master of ceremonies for today. So just jumping right in. Financial management processes, they can be too rigid for the realities of managing a construction project. Procore Financial Management Solutions have provided form, structure, and documentation for critical processes, but every business is unique and will commonly have their own unique ways of working. When we started down our financials journey at Procore, there were still many unique needs, situations that we couldn't address, and we found there's no one way everything's done, right? Procore customers need solutions that are flexible, sophisticated enough to handle the multitude of real-life construction financial scenarios. Because when a solution's too rigid, we return to old habits, right? So charts up here from our friends over at JB Knowledge show that estimating, accounting, and project management workflows are the most likely to rely on spreadsheets. And we know while they're certainly flexible, spreadsheets can also certainly be fallible, right? So we worked hard to ensure that these critical financial processes aren't so rigid that they send you back to those spreadsheets. Since we last met at Groundbreak, Procore has focused on configurability with new implementations of workflows and custom fields. Improvements to provide a more modern UI and a consistent user experience across the product. And we've expanded data analysis capabilities to deliver more robust reporting capabilities cross-tool and some of the key areas you're looking for data. Today, we're here to share some real examples of how these capabilities have been leveraged to elevate financial management. We'll start with some operational processes, and then we'll follow up with some powerful reporting built on top of those. With some great stories of how Bulley Andrews have elevated operational processes. Operational challenges can constrain business outcomes. So look, I'm sure you've seen this stat or something similar a million times over, right? 1% productivity growth per year for 20 years. 20% average schedule overrun. I'm not here to hit you over the head with stats about technology adoption in construction. The point is, we can all do better. You all made the trip out here. You showed up for this session. You're clearly interested in doing better, right? So let's just dive in and show you how it's done. And I'm not the star of this show. I'm going to turn it over to a real rock star here. As Director of Technology and Innovation, she's not only a leader in her role at Bulley Andrews, she's a thought leader in the construction industry. Creating a virtual design and construction department from the ground up at one of Chicago's oldest firms. Constantly engaging her teams by listening to their problems and working to provide innovative, thoughtful solutions while also working tirelessly to create a culture of diversity and inclusion in her workplace. Recipient of 2019 Construction Tech Women in Construction Award and two-time Built World's Adoption Leader. I'd like to introduce Dana Erdman. Take it away, Dana.
Thank you everybody. Thank you, Jeremiah. Listen, Bulley Andrews has been around since 1891. We're in business for 130 plus years now. When I started Bulley Andrews just over 14 years ago, it felt like I was stepping into processes that literally hadn't changed since 1891. When I first started, just to give you some insight as to where we were, Bulley Andrews was a CMIC accounting customer. We're one of the OGs. And we were using a software called Expedition, which sort of tried to digitize construction, but all it did was allow our project managers to create budgets and change orders electronically. They would print out those things and then hand it off to accounting. We obviously realized that was inefficient, so then we became CMIC project management customers as well. The benefit of that was obviously that our project managers could manage their financials through project management, and it would essentially hit accounting instantly. But there was absolutely no collaboration that happened between those two systems. Whatever the office did, the field did not see. Whatever the field did, the office did not see. And I'm sure you all have been here and have heard a million times already how critical that collaboration is. Not even to mention that there was absolutely no collaboration between Bulley Andrews and our external partners as well. So after 5 years of essentially sitting in the space of we're just getting by, we realized we really had to make a change in order to be, a business that was future-proof and future-ready for the next, 130 plus years. So we went out and tried to find the next best project management solution for Bulley Andrews, and we came up with Procore with an asterisk as we were sort of looking, and that's that the integration between project management and financials was absolutely a non-negotiable for us. I spoke with other contractors who were using Procore and using CMIC accounting, and essentially their project managers were working in both systems. And while they were getting really the best of Procore and sort of the best of financials, they weren't maximizing anybody's time, and there was still a number of inefficiencies with that. So we sort of took Procore on with this sort of asterisk that if we were going to do this, we were going to do this all the way, and we were really going to integrate these two systems and making it as efficient as possible. I already spoke about some of these points. CMIC is not cloud accessible. Sure, it's on a website, it's web-based, but it's not cloud accessible. It made it very difficult to collaborate on. And then we will talk a little bit about how just the subcontract process changed for us. But we were doing paper contracts, and it was really me that was doing the paper contracts 14 and a half years ago. I would write the contracts, print them out, and actually hand them off to the project managers for their review. So this whole process changed really when we went over to Procore. So we'll hit on the integration, but just a couple other changes that we really made. Our invoicing, which was really managed primarily by our project accountants, we made a change to put invoicing in the hands of our subcontractors, and Procore really allowed us to do that. We really went out to the marketplace too to figure out which partners were really going to help us become better, more efficient billing contractors. So we used Jones to help us with our compliance process. We used Built to help us manage lien waivers, with this idea that if we were going to go all in on Procore, we really wanted to make sure that whatever point solutions we chose integrated with Procore so we can get maximum value of the system that we chose. DocuSign sort of changed the game for us because we were able to manage the process in a much more efficient way. And using DocuSign within Procore really empowered our project managers to send contracts whenever they felt like the contracts were ready to be sent. And that was one of the biggest changes we made.
Once the DocuSign integration is enabled by your Procore point of contact, an option to sign with DocuSign will appear under each available tool. In this example, I'll be showing you how the DocuSign integration works in the Commitments tool. After you've entered the information required to move forward, simply click on the Create and Send with DocuSign button on the bottom right of the screen. Without leaving your screen, Procore will direct you to DocuSign, where you'll be able to manage your newly created envelope. You can view your documents, assign a template, and everything that DocuSign offers. I'll go ahead and set my signing order. And while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and add a message to the recipient. I'm ready for the next steps. In this screen, you'll notice that DocuSign have pre-filled the document with standard fields. You'll also have the option to add additional fields if required. I'll go ahead and add an initial box next to each signature line here. Click Send and DocuSign will take you right back to Procore. Once you're back in Procore, there's now a banner that shows you a signature is pending. It also shows you whose signature is required. Note that the status of my document still shows as out for signature.
So it went from me to putting in the hands of our project managers, and that was huge. So the next step of that, after you send the contract out, the recipient gets an email. It very clearly states that it's a DocuSign email. They click a button, and then it takes them to exactly where they have to sign it. And all the while, Procore is maintaining the statuses of those contracts and whose ball and court it is. And this is all data that we never had before when we had a very disconnected manual process. So it was incredibly helpful for us. So now that we've sort of covered the how we got here, let's really talk about why this matters to us and the integration and the work that we put into making this work. So I told you that we're CMIC accounting customers, but we really knew that we needed a powerful, solid, foundational part of our company, and that's Procore. We built everything off of Procore, but again, the contingency of that and of getting any new project management solution was it had to integrate with our financial system. While we have sort of floated the idea of changing financial systems, if you are a financial person, that absolutely will give you nightmares. So we did one thing at a time, and project management was first. There was no out-of-the-box solution for this. So we really had to find a trusted reference, basically in the industry, that would help us with this. We started this process during the pandemic, which in hindsight probably worked out for us because the world was weird anyway. So we had some time to sort of figure it out. We used Calence as our partner to help us with this. Calence came as a reference from Procore, and we really started to dive into what we wanted this integration to look like. The important thing here is that we did not want to automate bad processes that we had. We really wanted to use this as a time to improve upon processes that maybe we would normally never look at. I'll talk a little bit later about getting people engaged in this process, and I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about the office and the project managers. We spend a lot of time talking about superintendents, and those are absolutely valuable in our world. But there is such an untapped resource here in accounting, and I know it's so incredibly not sexy to talk about, but I think about the amount of time that our project managers save when we actually give our project accountants the right resources to do their job. So our project managers are no longer burdened by having to manage like a billing process that they really don't need anything to do with. They just need to know where things are, where they are. So this integration for us was critical, not just to integrate the two systems, but to make us better at our jobs. So we talked a little bit about this already, but committing to a single source of truth, which was Procore for us, like we had to have buy-in from everybody, from the top all the way down to the bottom. We had to know that Procore was where we were going to put every piece of information, and regardless of the point solutions we got as a result of switching out softwares or whatever, it had to integrate with Procore. The quality data capture piece comes out of committing to a single source of truth. I never realized there were 12 different ways that you could spell electric, but apparently there are. And when you try to actually make sense of that information, like when you're trying to find Block Electric, which is a subcontract we use in Chicago, it's BLOK, it's BLOCK, it's ELC. I mean, it's like you can't find that, and therefore you can't report off of it, right? You can't make sense of that information if you can't have consistent data. Database decision making comes next, right? So now you have all this information in a single source of truth, whether that's Procore or you're using a data warehouse or something like that. Now let's use it. Let's ask questions of the business. Let's figure out, how we can really leverage this data. And end user engagement speaks to, in this particular point, it speaks to how our users are really viewing the data, but it also speaks to getting people excited about the possibility of what their contributions really bring to the whole process. So the project accountants, for instance, what makes sense to them? What do they want to see? What has been a missing piece of information in their process? Let's figure that out and let's build around what those questions are so we can get them the right information. So let's talk a little bit about reports. So now we have these two systems in place. We've built the integration. We're integrating absolutely all parts of financials. So from your budgets, to your contracts, to your changes, to your prime contracts, everything has an integration point. And your accounting system is so finicky and it's so particular, so this integration really has to be solid. So now that we've got that in place, let's really talk about reporting. Now these reports are pretty special to me because they're not actually made by our core business. So Bulley Andrews has two separate sort of specialty companies that we are under our hood. And one of them is our masonry company. And this masonry company really helped me figure out the best ways that we can build out the financial integration. And they've made these reports that are so amazing. And the reason why they're so amazing is because our masonry company does not have a dedicated project accountant to it. So the project managers are, in essence, first of all, they're teaching the subcontractors how to invoice through Procore. It's written into our scopes of work that all subs will be invoicing through Procore. And then they're actually figuring out different ways of leveraging the tools that are in Procore to complete the billing process. So this is an example basically of just volume that we're running through the system. So sub change orders, owner invoices, how many, this is actually across all three companies, but what's out there, what's outstanding, what's left to be completed. This is all information that we didn't have before. Why does this matter? Because essentially it's driving workload, it's driving resources, it's determining how much money do we have out there, who's not been paid, things like that. The next report is interesting because this is a compliance report, right? And we're building all these reports off of Procore Analytics, and it's great. And a lot of times we're using just the typical templates that come out of Procore Analytics. But in these particular cases, we've done some work on them. But we're leveraging the Jones integration that we have with Procore, which is a Procore app marketplace vendor. They're reporting compliance back into Procore. We're getting payments from the owner basically coming from CMIC into Procore as well. We've got subcontracts information in Procore. So we're leveraging all this different information to really to compile basically a compliance report. So this is something that our accounting group looks at to determine who's been paid, who needs to be paid, has the owner paid us so that we can pay our subs. And it's very easy to see like what we have out there and who's compliant and who's not compliant. And this is just another volume report. So we've got all this financial data essentially starting in Procore, but we are pulling some stuff from CMIC. So you see in sort of the top area of this report, there's a labor, material, and sub cost. The labor cost is actually coming from CMIC into Procore through direct costs, if you're familiar. So we run our payroll through CMIC, but we're actually pulling all that information into Procore. And that way we're able to report off of it. Because if it stays in CMIC, we're either going to have to figure out a way to get that data out, or we're just going to leave it in there and not do anything with it. So being able to see what our labor costs are, what our material costs are, how they escalate. Obviously that's important to see right now, right? Like as we're seeing trends in the industry, if our labor costs are going up, if our material costs are going up, what does that look like, right? And so the first point is just being able to see what these data points look like, and then you start to find trends, right? Because the prediction can't come unless you have all this data stored in one place. And sort of like to bring it all together, some quick facts about what this integration has really done for us and how it's empowered our project accounts to be better billers. We've estimated that we saved about an hour per payout, and that's because we've really leveraged the invoicing tool in Procore. We put that responsibility back on the subcontractors. Do they get it right all the time on the first try? No, but we don't expect them to. So our project accountants are really committed to training our subs to get it right. And because we've sort of removed all the inefficiencies of the process through DocuSign and Jones and all these other systems, we've been able to save about an hour. We talked in the beginning about how the office in the field had really no insight into what the other one was doing, and getting this integration built, having Procore be our sort of foundational piece of construction technology has allowed us to give the field the tools that they need to see. And we don't need to give them everything, but financially they need to see some things, right? They need to see cost codes, they need to see budgets. If you've got self-perform work, they need to see what their quantities are, what the budget is there. So being able to have all the information in Procore and giving the field what they need to see as well. And then obviously real-time visibility for decision making. We've talked about this. Procore is open for everybody, so we encourage everybody to put their data encourage and sort of make it mandatory. But obviously, like, the more data that you put in, the better results you get out of it. So being able to leverage the things that we're doing in Procore and help us make better decisions going forward.
Great. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how all of you can replicate these results, take some good information back home. So if you're out there thinking, oh, that's great for Bulley Andrews, we couldn't possibly do that in our office, think again. Back to another stat from our friends over at JB Knowledge. Most limiting factor in technology adoption, it's us, right? 35% employee hesitance, 28% is just lack of knowledge of what's out there. And 27.8% of respondents says management hesitance, right? Don't be a barrier to taking on innovation and doing things better at your organization. So jumping back to Dana. Dana, can you share just a couple thoughts for the audience for what they can take back home and help innovate in their offices?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to repeat myself again, but I think the number one thing that we had to sort of reconcile in our business was what problem are we solving for here? Like, what is our challenge? What are we doing? We had to answer these questions, and we had to actually believe that we had a problem. You know, like, part of the problem is just admitting you have a problem. And you know, a lot of people don't want to do that, right? They think that if something's not broken, then don't fix it, when essentially everything is broken, so you actually can't see what's been broken at this point. So once our management really bought into this idea of we're just being inefficient with what we're doing, we had a place to start. And your organization has to commit to a data strategy. And it's going to vary depending on the size of your company, the resources that you have. My team is small, we're limited, but we lean on Kalins to really help us out here. So you can have a fully dedicated data staff, or you can do something like we've done and find a resource that really becomes a partner to you in the same way that having a dedicated resource internally would have. Once you've got sort of your data strategy in place, then you can start to work sort of outwards that way. And you know that you're going to want to get company buy-in. You know you're going to want your end users entering everything into the single source. You know you're going to want the field to do their part. You know you're going to want financials to do their part. So then you can really start to see value. And then the second point is absolutely end user engagement. I really found that there was a missing piece in financials because it's just not interesting to people. And you think, like, how much better can we really be, and what difference is it going to make if we are better? Well, we found that, one, you really can be better if you put the right processes in place, because our project management team, maybe we're a little different. You know, our project managers are really managing the financial process right now. But that is taking away from the work that they should be doing to build our buildings, right, and to do their day-to-day jobs. And the whole point of this conference is figuring out, you know, the best ways that our project managers can work and the field can work and we can work together. So when we actually started to engage the project accountants, who, you know, were actually really willing to have their voices heard, and were actually appreciative of that, we really found that we could unlock maybe more efficiencies than we could have imagined, because they were frustrated with old processes. They were frustrated with mistakes that the project managers were making, when by and large it wasn't their fault. And by just making the system just a little bit better and work better for the project accountants, we were able to make the project managers much better people as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Now we're going to have some fun. This is the interactive portion of the presentation here. So, hot mic in the center of the room. If you have any questions for this rock star here or product marketer from Procore, don't be shy. There's a hot mic in the middle, if you don't mind. Yeah.
We're going to make you work for the question.
So this was very helpful. Thank you for the presentation. My company is an owner based out of New York with roughly 20,000 multifamily units. We are growing much more quickly than we're able to keep up with right now, which I think is a challenge that many companies have. So looking for one single source of truth, which you mentioned is really important to us. Can you talk a little bit about any integrations and automations that you may have used?
Yeah.
We have roughly 3,000 contracts per month, and the scalability as we continue to acquire new properties is just very daunting for us right now.
Sure. Yeah, that's a pretty common problem too. So we try to keep to the marketplace as best we can because we are Procore customers, and they do have, you know, tons of vendors, and they're not paying me to say that. We really do keep to the Procore ad marketplace. And because of that, we found companies like Jones, which is a compliance company to manage certificates of insurance. We just signed an enterprise agreement with Riskcast for time entry in the field. We use DocuSign all the time for sending out contracts. And I think the point, though, is that we've become much more flexible about the point solutions that we're using, as long as they integrate with Procore. The other part is we use Chrome River for expenses, which does not technically integrate, but that's where Kalins came in to help us. And I think what we've done is just committed to, if there's a point solution out there that we're jazzed about or is working for us or whatever it is, then we will commit the resources and we will go to Kalins and say, listen, can you please help us integrate or automate these things? Because the value in getting the integration set up is worth its weight in gold. And if we have one system out there that's sort of working on its own, it's not doing anything, then we're losing that data and we don't want that. So we'll work to find a way to integrate the two. It's much easier to integrate through Procore than it is through CMIC because they've made it that way. So that's really our strategy, is how much can we find through the marketplace? If we can't find it through the marketplace, can we find a way to integrate it at least with Procore so that we can still get the information?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks for the question.
Could you ask the question of, who here is on Yardi, who is on CMIC, who here is on all the different financials? Right?
Sure, like show of hands. Which ones did you list off there? Are you curious? Yeah, who's using Yardi? A Yardi? People? Yeah.
I think they all are, honestly.
Who's using Vista?
Vista, anyone?
Spectrum, close enough.
Spectrum?
Well, I have a second question. So if you're using Vista, who is bigger than, top more than $1 billion revenue? Jeez.
How about Sage Timberline? Anybody using that?
Sage users?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Any CMIC customers?
Anyone?
Okay, 3. That's
Yeah.
great. That's telling. That's telling.
That's great. Yeah, go ahead.
My bad. I didn't realize I should raise my hand first when I go up. So I'm in the same company as that gentleman who just spoke. What were some issues that you ran into when you started integrating, and how did you get through them? Whether it be with people or just like process replacement.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm laughing because Daniel's in the audience for Kalins. Honestly, the biggest challenge was us. We were the biggest limiting factor to start because we didn't, we had a lot of problems, right? So like one of them was just data quality in our previous systems. If you want to use the data that you have existing and put it into the system that you're getting, that's a problem if you've never had a data strategy because your data is going to be garbage. The second was just us. I mean, we were limited by resources for one. We were limited by just a knowledge of what we wanted the integration to be, and we really haven't found our footing until really just recently. Not to say that the integration hasn't worked, because it has, but we're much better at what we want out of our integrations going forward. I think scalability was a little bit of a challenge. Like, we were asking Kalins to really take on a $500 million GC's financial integration with project management. And if you can't say that 5 times fast, you understand how big that was. So I think it was, a push-pull relationship to start with just finding where Kalins was going to really work with us, where we were going to have to give stuff to Kalins, and how we can make that relationship as harmonious as it is. But I think resources is probably the biggest thing, and just bad data being the second thing, because you have to make sense of what you have in order for the integration to work. And it was a lot of data cleanup in the beginning. And the data cleanup really hinders any progress that you're making on the integration side, because you're spending so much time trying to make sense of the data, and then you're trying to fix it as you go. So it took us a long time to really get going on it.
Sure. How many people did you have specialized or focused on your integration initiative? 1.
Yeah.
One person.
1.
And then how many hours a day did you dedicate to that initiative?
Well, it was during the pandemic. So, your days during the pandemic were like 36 hours long. So, no, I mean, honestly, it was probably my sole focus. So I, besides just keeping the business afloat technology-wise, this was my sole focus. I had sort of a part-time person that was helping me out a little bit, but I would say I'd spent easily 5 hours a day on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, go.
I'll try and be quick.
Yeah.
So I've heard the solution of putting the requirement for subcontractors to participate in Procore in the subcontract. And in my experience, what I've seen is clients who have the clout to say so, that works great. A lot of my clients, and I'm a consultant, not a user, a lot of my clients don't have that much pull. They're struggling to find the good subcontractors because the big guys already have them.
Sure.
What recommendations do you have for smaller emerging market GCs to, I'll say, encourage subcontractors to participate in Procore?
That's a good question. Honestly, it's something we're still struggling with, and we're a larger GC, but I think you have to have a strategy in place that's just committed to training people. We've toyed around with the idea of getting our project accountants really onboarding the contacts of these companies to make sure that they're aware that we're invoicing in Procore, that this is how you do it. It's super simple, but if people are uncomfortable at all with the system, and if they experience any type of challenge at all, it falls through the wayside, right? So like, they need to know that there's a point person they can go to if they struggle. We need to do a better job of training our subcontractors, and the small GCs just have to take that on, I think, in order for it to work. It's more than just mandating in the contract, right? That's just sort of protection, and really the contract really becomes a suggestion at that point. But like, I think you have to have resources really at your company dedicated to helping the subcontractor sort of work through the process. Once they do it a few times and they've not experienced any like major hurdles, I think it becomes much more easier to get it going.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll add to that, as with adopting any new solution, show them the value, right?
Yeah.
So start with the value, why they should do it, and then show them what it's going to take to get in there. Because it's a cost-benefit analysis they're doing in their head, right? If I'm not perceiving any value of doing this, I'm not going to put a whole lot into making it happen.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Well, now I didn't have to get up because he just took my question. I was going to ask what percentage compliance you had from your partners, your architects, and how you're getting them to engage in using the software, because that seems to be a problem.
Sure. You know, one of the reasons why we chose Procore, and we looked at a lot of other solutions, is because they are becoming the system for everybody, and it seemed like a much easier lift to get Procore than to get any other solution. So we thought we'd get ahead of the game and just buy into the same solution that everybody else was buying into. So I think that helps, right? And I think the change is going to be that general contractors and other companies are going to have to be just more tech forward, and you're going to have to understand your technology in a way that maybe you haven't before. And that way you can train on technology as you onboard new partners or new, you're working with new project stakeholders. You know, of course it's a struggle. Our architects and owners may be using PamWeb or some other system. You know, we're asking them to now do things in Procore. But I think that if you can remove the barrier and you can just give them a good first experience in it, and you cannot make them frustrated, it becomes a much more enjoyable experience for them. I recently just did an onboarding session with 2 owners reps, and I said, well, what do you want to know? Like, what are you going to be doing in the system? And they said, I'm doing A, B, and C. I want to view drawings, I want to view RFIs, and I want to see where the prime contract is. I said, great, here it is. They said, that was so easy. Remove all the permissions that they don't need. Don't give them more access than they need. Let them come to you if they get, frustrated or something, but hopefully they won't. And just give them like 5-10 minutes of your time just to be able to onboard them. And I think that helps go a long way.
Okay, and I did have one other question. The dashboards that you showed up, is that what you're getting out of CMIC, or is that?
We're pulling everything from Procore.
So was that dashboard through Procore?
It
or
was.
it?
It's Procore Analytics.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Power BI. Procore Analytics.
Hi. What was your strategy for switching over to invoicing? Did you phase it for owner and sub invoicing, or did you just go cold turkey?
Kind of both. Our masonry and concrete companies sort of took it on first, and so we were able to learn from them. They're much smaller. They do a lot less volume. Our core company, who is much larger in business, sort of phased it in. So we were able to we picked a few project accountants that were super eager to try something new, and we said, okay, let's run these 5 jobs through invoicing tool. And we use a lot of the same subs in Bulley Andrews, so we were able to, once you got a sub trained, if they were going to work with another project account, they would be good. But we use a very small subset of projects to get started, and then we're like, okay, once you validated 5 times, we should be good. Let's roll this out. And so I think that's been our strategy, is sort of a light testing, and then we go full in.
Awesome. And then the integration that you used for time entry for the field, what was that?
We use RiskCast.
RiskCast?
Yeah, they're in the expo hall.
Okay.
Yeah. They didn't pay me to say that either.
So we also use Procore and DocuSign, but our company has really avoided using it for subcontracts. We use it for change orders and other things, just because of all the editing that people love to do on the subcontracts gets messy. But it sounds like you have implemented that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any issues with that, and how did you overcome it?
So we don't. So it depends. We don't allow editing on our contracts. So if a sub gets our contract and has issues with it, we ask them to submit a rider. So they'll submit the paper rider on, not paper rider, they'll submit a letterhead with their rider information on it. And then we'll basically rescind the envelope and then upload a new one with the rider attached. And we'll just add a signature tag, which is very easy. It's just a click and drag thing over to it. So that takes care of the editing process.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We want to pick it up on the mic for the recording too. Yeah.
I can be as loud as you want me to be.
Shout.
What payment solution are you using and lien waiver solution do you guys?
We don't use, the question was, if you didn't hear it, what's the payment solution we're using and lien waiver solution? Lien waivers we're using Built. We've tried a few different companies. Built seems to be the best one suited for us right now. Payment solution wise, we haven't really found one. I mean, we've got ACH set up, we've got some pay mode stuff set up, we're still doing checks. So once the compliance gets determined in Procore through those reports, then our accounting department really takes it from there.
Any other questions, gang? Going once? Twice? All right. Well, call to action for all of you. So first steps down this journey. Take a walk down to the expo hall. Last session is going to be open. A lot of the vendors that she mentioned, marketplace folks, are down there. A lot of the great innovative financial management stuff that we talked about today also can be shown in the demo pavilion or the innovation lab. So get out there and check it out. Make a change in your organization. Thanks, everybody.